Our next speaker is Jacqueline Lowe from the UNC Asheville. Jacqueline's currently working on a master's in the public policy area, looking at climate change.
Good afternoon. Thank you all for being here. Again, my name is Jacqueline Lowe, and I am a master's student at UNC Asheville. I'm also in the GIS certificate program at AV Tech, as well as an intern with NEMAC, which some of you might be familiar with. Before I begin, I'd like to just tell a story about myself. About 2 years ago, when I graduated from my undergrad, I decided to pursue the field of GIS, and with no experience. And I was doing a homework assignment for one of my programming classes. I was going through the instructions, and it says, press the return key. And I said, what's the return key? And my boyfriend looked at me like I was crazy. The enter key? So 2 years ago, I knew almost nothing, and today I am here presenting on spatial data infrastructures. And I think it's important to note that you don't have to be the most tech-savvy person to be able to get involved in this community and this sort of thing. I hope to demonstrate that a little bit through my presentation. So what are spatial data infrastructures? An SDI is a collaborative framework for various aspects of geospatial data and tools. It provides storage, access, metadata, querying, display, analysis of spatial data, access to spatial data services, all while maintaining data integrity, organization, and ultimately reducing redundancy. It's used by everyone from governments to small nonprofits, commercial industries, the general public. It can be beneficial from anything to very small scale to very large scale projects. A good example of a very large scale project is the United Nations spatial data infrastructure. So I'd like to go over a few components, a few of the main categories involved in SDIs. And the first one that's really important to discuss is data management. And so this being one of the most significant benefits, it's the capability to store a large amount of data, to create an inventory, to search that inventory, to allow other people to search that inventory and access it and access that data and use it for themselves. Spatial data infrastructures include components such as map viewing that allow users to interact with that data. Combine that with the ability to query for results, style, uploaded layers, edit layers, really allows you to do a wide variety of things in SDIs. Data storing sounds really similar to data management, but in this particular component of SDIs, you're really able to have the ability to create and maintain that data. So, as we all know, spatial data comes in a wide variety of formats, which can create some complications for people when they're trying to share it or access it or even just use it. With SDIs, you have a platform in which numerous types of data can be shared and accessed, whether it's a non-spatial table, an Excel spreadsheet, a shapefile, a WMS layer. SDI has the capabilities to let you transform it and create it in a format that is accessible to you and a variety of other people. So data access is pretty simple. It's exactly what it sounds like. It's the ability to deliver that geospatial data using the SDIs so that many people can access it in one place and use it as needed. And I'll be going through an example in a moment. First, before I go into the example, I'm going to talk a little about the program that I used, which is GeoNode. And this is one example of an SDI that's available open source. The key trend going on right now, as we all know. And if you are more interested in details about how to use GeoNode, I'd be happy to speak with you later, but there are some complications with being able to use it if you're not already a bit tech savvy. So, I'd like to go over an example and have you imagine a scenario. So imagine there's a non-profit environmental organization. Lots of spatial data stored in many different formats. You have spreadsheets, map files, WMS layers. Transferring the data is very complicated. The organization is having trouble getting access to all the information they required. Some of it is very outdated and needs to be updated. And to top it off, each user in the organization has a different set of skills for dealing with geospatial information. How can they use SDIs to successfully manage their organization in a way that is available to everybody and reduces redundancy? Well, an SDI is really a great opportunity for them. So, to begin with, they can upload layers in a variety of formats to an SDI, and this is specifically looking at GeoNode, but these capabilities are common within many of the other SDIs that are available. They can browse to certain layers that they might have in their files and upload them. There are some points that are important to make sure, like, you have it in the proper projection. And once they do that, they have control over the permissions of who sees it. So while this is great because it's open source, we also have the benefit of people being able to adapt to the privacy settings for whatever particular reason they might want to. Once the data is uploaded and the permissions are set, they have the ability to edit the layer, not only editing as far as labeling and the different colors that you want to use or any particular type of editing that you're interested in, but also the metadata. And speaking a little more in depth about metadata, I think we're all pretty aware of how important it is to have data on your data. Metadata is essentially letting you know when something was created, when the data, who the data was created by, the last time it was updated, maybe the spatial reference, all sorts of relevant things that you need to know. And how you organize your data is really up to you, but one of the big issues, one of the hot topics right now is standards for metadata. And luckily, in GeoNode, you have the option to organize your data based on maybe your own strategy or with a set of ISO standardized keywords that are searchable, that you can use to tag your data and make it easily accessible to other people coming from a variety of different places. Another benefit of using SDIs, and in particular GeoNode, is that the layers that you create are automatically uploaded to a WMS. And so if you were to decide you wanted to publish your layer, it is done automatically for you and in connection with GeoServer, and you can share it or you can leave it in your data there for later access. And you can see here that I've highlighted the particular projection, which is WGS84 for these WMS layers. Of course, this is not limited to WMS layers. You have the ability to deliver your geospatial data in a variety of formats as well, including PostGIS databases, which a lot of you are probably familiar with. And again, it's automatic. And this is not just when you upload a layer, but also you have the ability to view and create maps within a Mapviewer. So one of the main components of SDIs is not only this storage component, but also the ability to interact with your data and allow other people to interact with it, which is one of the key messages with open source. And so if you upload a layer and you decide that you need a layer that somebody else has, you can select it, you can select your layer, you can choose whatever you would like, you can put it into your Mapviewer, you can edit it, you can publish it, you can access the WMS layer, you can make it accessible to others, you can tag it with keywords, and essentially do a multitude of things that you might normally have to go to 5 different places to do. So this makes your life a lot easier and the lives of everybody working in that hypothetical environmental organization. And in case you were wondering, specifically some examples of some file formats that are downloadable or uploadable in GeoNode, here's a list. And you're not limited to spatial data in the form of a raster layer or a shapefile, for example. If you have Excel spreadsheets or relevant documents that go along with your data, you are able to put these in your SDI as well. Say, for example, you have a PDF file that includes relevant information to your map layer that you want users to be able to access. You can put that in as well. And there are a few things to consider before we conclude. And the first being, let's remember that this is open source. And one of the biggest trends right now, as we all heard from Paul Ramsey, is open source and really making that relevant. This is also important because it's user-friendly on all levels. And as you know, I was somebody who would never have been able to work with geospatial data 2 years ago, but if I had no experience, I could go onto GeoNode and I could access a Mapviewer and I could click on and off different layers and I could get the data that I required easily. If I were a seasoned professional in my field, I could use this to manage all of my data and provide it for others. It is a time saver, it's user-friendly, it's open source, but there are some limitations. As I mentioned briefly with GeoNode, it is relatively new, and it's one of those things that if you don't have a little bit of expertise, then you might struggle a little trying to get it up and running. Another issue that we touched on briefly is the standardization of data, especially with our metadata. If you're not following a particular ISO standard, for example, then somebody who is trying to search through your data, or if you want to share it, if you're working with an international organization, there are going to be limitations and issues that will arise from that. But these are all things that are changing with the times, and hopefully we can all contribute to this sort of technology and make it more accessible as time goes on. And if you have any further questions, I'd be happy to answer them for you now.
Do you have to download it, or can you create an account on their website and do it through that?
You can create an account, but if you have to have administrator privileges to be able to upload your data and edit the permissions, so you're a little more limited. There are also other platforms. Esri has one. GeoNetwork is another one that you can use. So if you just want it for basic purposes, then yes, you could go on and create an account. Yes?
Did you see any use of this in, say, an introductory GIS or geography course, or in your case, public policy areas, for showing people how to use maps, or would this be a little bit above most people's head?
I would venture to say that you could. I mean, assuming that you don't, the students wouldn't have to, figure out how to upload it themselves initially. It would be a great way to introduce people to maybe viewing maps and interacting with layers. Maybe the first step to creating their own spatial data. So yeah, I would recommend, certainly. Any other questions? No? Well, thank you very much for your time.
Great. Thank you. We had just the two speakers today for this last session, so thank you very much. And if you have questions for Anthony or Calvin, we've got a little bit of time left. So